I remember I was hitting it from the back on my girlfriend, and one thing led to another. My babysitter ends up walking into my room saying, Baba, what's going on here? Who is this girl? I can explain. As me and her were literally in the middle of doing the Devil's Tango. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane but embarrassing story. So this story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 11 year. Now, in grade 11, I might have said this before, but I was a major player. No joke, from the amount of girls I'd done back then, it was really bad. But I remember around winter time when it was cuffing season, I ended up cuffing one of the girls that I was talking to on my phone all the time. And she was like basically part of my roster, but she was the hottest one, so I thought maybe dating her wouldn't be a bad idea. Since everyone was getting into relationships, I wanted to seem normal as well, and also I guess date a girl. So I remember me and this girl from my high school, we would be dating, and the whole school knew about it, so one thing led to another. I remember it got to the point where a lot of people were calling us like the cutest couple. It was really weird, but at the same time, I could see why, because my girlfriend in my grade 11 year was attached to me like a lost puppy. Anywhere I would go, she would go. Anything I was planning on doing or doing, she would be there. It was actually super annoying, and even my friends that were friends with me back in high school found it really also annoying because, well, as we wanted to go out and go do guy things, she would always be there. To the point where I remember one of my friends ended up telling me, yo, Bubba, why don't you just like hang out with her and then come see us later? This would happen so often to the point where I was on the urge of just breaking up with her, but actually me and her ended up having a good conversation, and luckily she understood. I needed my me time and she needed her time with me, so we decided to make it into different time sections where I would basically end up scheduling myself to hang out with her and have to schedule times where she was not allowed to be around me. It's kind of crazy how I had to do that because I feel like normally couples should just know when to leave each other alone and when, you know, they're supposed to be together, but this girl had no understanding of that whatsoever. Going on though, I remember a couple days go by, and I remember it was a Thursday evening. I ended up coming home from school. When I got home, I remember I saw my mom sitting in the living room, and as I walked in, she looked at me and said, oh, Bubba, can I talk to you for a second? Yeah, sure. What's up, mom? Okay, so I want to let you know that basically me and your father are planning. And right at that moment, my phone ends up ringing. I end up looking at it and seeing it was my girlfriend. And since I didn't want my mom to know I had a girlfriend back when I was in high school, I ended up telling her, mom, give me a second. This is my friend. I need to go quickly answer this. And I go into the other room and answer. I answer saying, babe, what is going on? What's wrong? Baba, don't you know what time it is? What? What do you mean? And that's when I realized she scheduled a time with me that evening. I started to freak out, and I remember I ended up quickly running into my room, getting my things while I was on the phone, and my mom ends up looking at me doing all this, and she looks at me and says, Baba, can I finish what I was gonna say to you? Mom, just tell me tomorrow. I gotta go. And boom, I ended up leaving out the door and shutting it. Obviously, I don't like walking out of my mom like that, but I'm gonna be honest, bro. It was better than getting yelled at by my girlfriend. I remember I ended up meeting up with my girlfriend, and my girlfriend was just telling me, like, you know, how things are at school and stuff, even though I literally just saw her back at school, but that's not the point. She started yapping about, you know, girl drama and all this stuff that I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care about, nor does anyone watching this video. So going on to the juicy part, I remember after she was done yapping, I looked at her in the most Sigma mode ever, and I told her, hey babe, so on Monday at lunchtime, I'm gonna be hanging out with the guys, so can you just like not be around me? Because like, I'm not gonna lie, the guys are kind of annoyed with you, and I just like want them to like you, so you know, just stay away from me on Monday. Is that cool? What? But I want to have lunch with you on Monday. Well, I mean, you can, but like, you know, on Tuesday. Babe, are you serious? Okay, what about tomorrow? Oh, babe, I would, but honestly, I have like this thing at math, and I gotta be there because I don't want to fail. Okay, well, can you at least see me afterwards? Like, you know, late at night? Tomorrow? Yeah, I should be able to see you late at night. I don't see why not. Okay, perfect. So Friday night, me and you. Yeah, no, for sure. I remember after that whole day, I remember I ended up going home, and when I got home, I ended up seeing both my parents. Both of my parents were there, and they were sitting at the dining room table waiting for me to come home for dinner, but I ended up coming kind of late. But as I sat down for dinner, I remember my mom looks at me once again and says, Bubba, I need to talk to you. Yeah, mom, what's up? Okay, well, I was trying to tell you earlier before you ran off, but basically, me and your dad, we're going for a trip tomorrow, and we're not gonna be back till Sunday. Wait, what? Where are you guys going? We're gonna be going to America, so we're gonna be gone for a while, but don't worry, we left you with a babysitter. Wait, what? No, I don't need a babysitter. What? Why'd you guys get me one? At that moment, I started panicking because I knew that if I was gonna have a babysitter come over and take care of me, there was no possible way that I was gonna also hang out with my girlfriend that I was gonna see the next day. So I remember I started panicking and stuff, and I started to worry, and I remember I ended up going inside my room, and before I went to bed, I remember debating on if I should text my girlfriend that I wasn't able to make it for tomorrow's date, but honestly, I decided to basically leave it for the next day and deal with it in person. That way she knows I'm actually serious, and not gonna do some crazy stuff. But the next day when I ended up seeing her at school, I ended up walking up to her between classes, and I walked up to her saying, hey babe, so you know how we're supposed to have like that date tonight? Yeah, I hope you didn't forget. Well, no, obviously, but I'm gonna have to cancel. Wait, what? Why? Well, my parents are having this thing at home and I gotta deal with it. Oh, okay, well, I mean, that's fine, I guess. It's whatever. And that's when my girlfriend ended up walking away super upset. But honestly, I'd rather her be upset than figure out that I had a babysitter in my grade 11 year. Like, bro, come on. I remember after school that day, I finally got home and I ended up seeing the babysitter that was supposed to take care of me sitting at the living room. I ended up walking in the living room saying, oh, hi, my name's Bubba. Hi, I'm your babysitter. I'm supposed to be taking care of you, I believe. Yeah, my parents, I guess, got me a babysitter because they know I'm not doing good at school. Okay, well, just go upstairs and focus on your assignments. Your mom gave me the rules already of what you're allowed to do and what you're not, so don't think about doing anything funny. Seriously. I know how teenagers can get. Yeah, no, don't worry. I'm just gonna be upstairs the whole time. You're chilling. And I ended up going upstairs in my room, sitting down with my headphones on, playing Call of Duty. That's all I was doing. I didn't do anything else. And I remember 5 hours later, I ended up seeing my balcony, and I ended up seeing someone was throwing rocks at it. I was so confused to the point where I went to the balcony, and I looked over, and I saw it was my girlfriend throwing rocks. I looked at her and said, what are you doing? Babe, your parents aren't even home. You said you had the parent situation. Where are your parents? And whose car is this? Babe, honestly, oh my God. Here, come on in. I remember I ended up going downstairs secretly while the babysitter was watching TV, and I opened the door for her and let her in. Me and her secretly went up the stairs and went straight to my bedroom, and that's when I sat down beside her on my bed and said, babe, I didn't want to tell you, but I had a babysitter. My parents are gone for the trip, and there was no way I was gonna have you over with a babysitter here. Well, I mean, I'm here now. Well, yeah, but she doesn't know. If she walks in, I'm gonna get in serious trouble. Babe, it's gonna be totally okay. And at that moment, me and her, well, we ended up doing the Devil's Tango. And I remember as I'm hitting it from the back, literally no joke, 15 minutes later, my babysitter ends up walking into my room, asking me a question about the fridge. And as she walks in, she sees me literally doing the Devil's Tango with my girlfriend in my room. At that moment, I started to freak out, and my babysitter started to freak out, and my girlfriend's just sitting there bent over, not caring about the world whatsoever. And it got so awkward, and everything just went silent to the point where the babysitter ended up leaving the room, and she closed the door saying, Baba, tell her to get her clothes on and leave. Seriously, I'm gonna tell your parents about this. At that moment, I was telling her to leave, but my girlfriend was like, babe, why does she get to say what goes on? Like, seriously, who is she? Like, who cares if she's your babysitter? She's not your actual parent. And that's when my babysitter ends up saying, well, I mean, I can call his parents right now if you want. Bro, they ended up arguing back and forth to the point where I had to break up with my girlfriend just for her to leave, and my babysitter just ended up going silent. At that moment, I just ended up sitting in my room on my bed, totally just in shock of what just happened. But then my babysitter ends up walking in with a grilled cheese, and she sits down beside me saying, hey, I just want to say I'm sorry about your relationship. I didn't know it was that serious, but honestly, why didn't you just ask me? Well, I don't know. I'm usually not allowed to have girls over anyway. Okay, well, here, eat this, and don't worry, I'm not gonna tell your parents about this, but next time, don't go for psycho girls. And that's when she ends up going out of my room, and I didn't speak to her for the rest of the night. My babysitter got arrested at my house. Trust me when I say this, it made no sense why she got arrested, but I remember panicking, and it was just not it. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to an insane story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in middle school, and funny enough, this was back when I was actually in grade 6. Yeah, in grade 6, I was just starting middle school, and I didn't really pull girls at this time. I was more known for just playing video games and sitting in my room and, well, just learning how to beat my eggplant. But honestly, trust me when I say this, I was hitting puberty. And I remember back when I was in grade 6, one thing I found really cool was girls that were more in the darker side of things. I think many people understand the term bad girls and how they like bad girls. And I remember me back when I was in grade 6, I thought bad girls were cool. Like, for example, girls that would, yell on Call of Duty and, be basically swearing at other people. I found that kind of attractive. I don't know why. Maybe I was just being a weird kid back then, but I don't know. It's just something that was a part of me, I guess. I remember one time back when I was in grade 6, I was heading home from school, and I was actually heading home with a group of friends. Now, me and my group of friends, we were all, massive gamers. We all really didn't focus on girls at the time. So I remember all of us, we'd actually decided to head over back to my place and basically all play a new game that released on the Wii U. If you guys don't know, the Wii U was released back when I was in grade 6, and honestly, everyone loved it. And I remember, especially me, being in grade 6, I thought the Wii U was something insane. Obviously, now it's considered considered one of the worst consoles ever, but I remember there was one game on there that a lot of us all played, and it was Smash Bros. And me and my friends, we loved playing Smash Bros. I know that sounds weird for me saying Smash Bros in the same sentence and not making it sus, but at the same time, just hear me out. Anyways, I remember when we all walked through my front door and went straight to my Wii U to play Smash Brothers, my mom ended up coming up to me and saying, Bubba, can I pull you aside for a second? Yeah, mom, what's up? Bubba, me and your dad are leaving for a bit. What time are your friends planning on leaving? They're probably gonna leave like an hour or two. We're just gonna play a couple rounds. Why? Okay, well, after they leave, your babysitter's gonna be here right away, and we're leaving right now. Wait, why are you guys leaving right now? Is it an emergency? Yes, it's a big emergency, and we just need to leave. At this time, I guess some family stuff was going on, and my parents, since I was really young, they didn't want me to get familiar with it, because obviously they just want me to be a happy kid like usual. And I remember I ended up going up to my friends saying how they had to leave a bit sooner and all this stuff, and basically after like the 1 hour mark of us playing games, we hear a doorbell ring. Now, when we heard this doorbell ring, me and all the guys, we all ended up basically thinking it was one of the parents, so we all headed straight for the door to basically get my friends picked up and head home. But right as we answer the door, I am not joking when I say this, we see a girl in all black looking like a goth girl basically walk into my house. Now, all my friends were ultimately terrified, but me, I'm not gonna lie to you, I found her somewhat hot. I don't know why. It was really weird for me to think that, but at the same time, like I said earlier, I think I had like a thing for bad girls back then. And going on with the story, I remember basically she walked in and said, okay, the parents said there was only supposed to be one kid here. Why are there like 5 of you? Oh, I'm the kid you're supposed to be taken care of. Sorry, my friends were just over. Tell them to leave right now. I remember when she said that, all my friends just instantly headed for the door. And I'm not gonna lie to you, this new babysitter was becoming the boss of the house. Me, at this time, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't want to disobey her because this girl looked like she would actually punch a child. Like, I am not joking when I say this. I should not be saying this. YouTube, don't demonetize this when I say this. But this girl looks like she would harm children. So I remember I started kind of like panicking and all my friends left, and me, I instantly went upstairs and basically started hiding in my bedroom because I didn't know what this babysitter was gonna do to me. She was terrifying. But obviously this babysitter ended up actually coming up the stairs and looking at me saying, why are you hiding? Come downstairs right now. I'm just gonna feed you something real quick, you little rat. Rat? Little rat? Wait, just because I'm hiding under my bed, it doesn't make me a rat, is what I told her afterwards. And yeah, no, she didn't like that. She ended up grabbing me by the wrist and actually dragging me downstairs and made me sit in the kitchen table and basically made me wait as she was making the dinner for me. It blew my mind how some people, even though they really hate children, want to be babysitters. Like, are you that desperate for money that you want to take care of me and treat me like garbage, but still take my parents' money? So I ultimately start panicking and I start worrying. And honestly, the more and more I stressed out, I didn't know what in the world was going on. Anyways, I remember basically this babysitter ended up feeding me. And I will say this, she ended up sitting down right in front of me and all she did was go on her phone. She went on her phone and stuff, and then she ended up getting a phone call. Now, I'm going to say this, when your ringtone is something from AC/DC, especially TNT, it's actually kind of terrifying. But basically, I remember this babysitter got a phone call, and out of nowhere, she ended up getting up and basically walking away saying, yeah, are you like bringing the stash here? Like, hurry up. Now, when she said stash, the only stash I've ever heard of back when I was in grade 6 was either pubic stash or mustache. So the fact that she said stash made me worry because I didn't know what that was. And I think I've played enough Call of Duty to understand that stashes are usually not a good thing unless it's ammo for a reload. So I started panicking, and at the same time, I really wanted to get a hold of my parents. I remember I ended up basically leaving the dinner table as she was away from the table as well on the phone call, and I started heading upstairs to my bedroom. When I got there, I instantly pulled out my iPad, and I basically started like, you know, trying to message my mom over iMessage. But right away, right as I was on my iPad messaging my mom, this babysitter ends up walking in saying, where'd you go? Why'd you leave like that? Who do you think you are? I'm just, you know, texting my friends. She grabs my iPad and sees that the top of the message board was mommy. And she says, Bubba, you're not supposed to text your mom. I'm supposed to be taking care of you. I'm supposed to be your new mother. What are you on? Honestly, this girl did not seem like anything smart or safe whatsoever for, well, a babysitter. But that's not even where things get worse, because I remember what happens next, I gotta say, was super illegal. Because I remember I ended up heading downstairs, and out of nowhere, I ended up hearing someone pull up to my driveway right as I went down the steps. I ended up kind of like trying to figure out and look through the front door window to see who it was. But out of nowhere, I remember my babysitter ends up grabbing me by the neck and looks at me and says, Bubba, I'm gonna actually need you to go back upstairs to your room. You want me to go to my room again? Yeah, just go up to your room for like 5 minutes. Trust me, it won't be anything. I ended up going upstairs, and right away, I ended up seeing from my front window of my bedroom that someone was in like a really like black scary car that was like all tinted out. And basically, a person came out that had like tattoos all over his arms. He wasn't like jacked or anything. It was just a skinny guy with tattoos. Ended up walking up to my front of my house and dropping something off and leaving right away. I started panicking, thinking, yo, what is going on in my house right now? Like, where did my parents get this babysitter? And then that's when it happened. I remember the babysitter ended up calling me downstairs saying, Bubba, come down right now, you little rat. And I ended up heading downstairs, and when I got there, she was holding a bag of sugar. I'm not gonna say exactly what, because YouTube monetization, but if you guys don't know what the devil's sugar is, then you're probably too young to be watching this channel. I remember from there, I basically ended up like, you know, following her around the house and stuff, and she ended up taking this bag to a bathroom, and then she ended up coming out with the bag being gone. At this point, I went to the bathroom right after her, and I saw that my bathroom counter, well, I'm gonna say this, it was a little dirty with some white stuff on it that I, let's just say, don't want to get into because YouTube monetization, but let's just say, yes, there was some sort of substance in my house. Now, I didn't know anything about, you know, substances and all the bad stuff back when I was a kid, but out of nowhere, I remember watching my babysitter, and she seemed like she was more energized than she usually was, and she had a bigger smile on her face for some reason. I found this very odd and stuff, but honestly, I just kind of like decided just to obey her because I didn't know what was gonna happen. At this point, I felt super unsafe in my own house, and no kid should ever have to feel like that. Going on with the story, I remember right after that whole situation happened, I ended up sitting down in my living room, and me and her, we actually ended up watching a movie together. Obviously, I wanted to watch some action movie that was super cool, probably like James Bond or something, but she wanted to watch a horror movie. And I'm gonna tell you one thing. In my house, we were not allowed to watch horror movies, but the fact that this girl wanted to, my babysitter, my mind was blown. I remember me and her were watching this movie together, and we were watching this horror movie, and out of nowhere, the most craziest thing happened where I ended up hearing a hard knock on the door. Like, it sounded like a very serious knock that only an angry person would. And me at this time, I started getting terrified because one, I just watched a horror movie about a bunch of people getting like, you know, murdered in a house. And two, I was thinking that probably the guy that was here earlier, the big, scary, tall, Slenderman, tattooed looking dude, was going to come and basically was going to, you know, break in my house. So I started panicking even more, and I started actually running upstairs and hiding into my bedroom. And right as you know it, I ended up hearing cop sirens turn on right as they were knocking. Now, I recognize cop sirens from anywhere. Back when I was a kid, I played Grand Theft Auto 5. So instantly at that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm safe. The police are here. I ended up opening my front door, and when I opened it, I saw cops swarming in, and all of them I thought were after me. So I put my hands up and went on my knees right away. And the only reason I went on my knees was because in Grand Theft Auto, they always tell you to go on your knees, but they ended up all passing me and looking at me really weirdly and ended up arresting my babysitter. I have no idea why. I was so weirded out and trying to figure out what was going on, but my babysitter got arrested and basically ended up getting escorted out of the house. And I remember one of the cops came up to me and asked, hey son, where's your parents at? My parents aren't here. They left me with the babysitter that's in handcuffs right now. Well, your babysitter's done some very bad things, making deals of bad things. So either you call a parent that can come take care of you, or we will drop you off anywhere you like. When they said drop me off wherever I liked, I ended up driving over to my friend's house and explaining to his parents the whole situation. And yeah, let's just say my parents got a big talking to about hiring the right babysitter, but at the same time, what can I say? My babysitter literally got arrested. Like, what was I supposed to do? I remember when I went downstairs, I ended up walking up to my babysitter, and I saw she had her finger up her nose, and then she ended up scratching her peach with it. Like, ew. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So this story takes place back in my grade 5 year. So I was in elementary school, and I was just a basic kid, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I did not know any better than the average child. The only thing I cared about back when I was in grade 5 was tech decks, video games, and also probably Pokemon. I love Pokemon, and to this day I still do. But one thing I will say is that one thing I hated was that I was a major introvert, meaning that I would never be able to really go out and talk to people. Hell, I was even nervous to go and buy a pizza one time. Like, I could not talk to anybody, and I always felt like I was really awkward. Obviously, throughout middle school, I started learning how to not be, but especially in grade 5, honestly, I was just not good with interacting or basically confront someone in any way. But I remember one time I was walking home from my elementary school after my classes were done, and I basically started heading home. When I finally got home, I saw my parents were looking at me, and one of my parents ended up walking up to me, which was my mother, and said, oh, Baba, so we're gonna be leaving for a couple days. We're gonna give you a babysitter, so do not worry, everything will be okay. Where are you guys going? Oh, we're going to quickly go visit your auntie in the States, so you do your thing here. Don't worry, the babysitter will be here any minute, but we have to go now, okay? I left some grilled cheese sandwich for you at the kitchen. okay, is what I said. And right away, my parents ended up leaving. Obviously, at first, I was really nervous about being home alone, but at the same time, like, it didn't seem that much of a difference since I wouldn't interact with my parents anyway, even if they were home. So I remember I ended up just going straight up to my room and started playing video games. Obviously, in grade 5, you don't really get any crazy homework. So, you know, I just ended up sitting there, sitting on my Xbox, playing video games the entire time and pretending that everything was okay. Until out of nowhere, I remember the doorbell rang and I ended up hearing someone at my door. Now, once again, I was a major introvert, like to the point where I was scared of everything. I was even afraid of my own shadow. So when I heard the doorbell rang, I remember I was super nervous to go basically answer the door. Then I ended up going onto my balcony and looking down at my front door to see who it was. When I looked down, I saw that there was a girl in like a crop top. She was like a basic girl. And I remember I saw that there was already a stain on her shirt. And I'm not gonna lie to you, she looked disgusting. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember I basically ended up looking down and she looked up right away and saw me. She ended up saying, "Hi, you must be Bubba. Can you come get the door?" I mean, I can. Okay, well, can you? I remember at that moment, I felt like it was a really awkward situation. So I remember I ended up basically going off my balcony, sprinting straight to the front door, and I let her in. When I let her in, I remember she looks over at me and she started smiling at me. And when I saw her smile, I am not joking, she had the most yellow teeth ever. Like, her teeth were more yellow than Big Bird. Like, it was ultimately disgusting. And I remember I kept looking at her thinking, how in the world did my parents find this babysitter? I remember she ends up coming in and she ends up basically, like, you know, introducing herself and basically telling me how we're gonna have a great time and just, you know, the basic rundown of how the night's gonna go. Obviously for me, I ended up just, you know, ignoring her somewhat. Obviously this wasn't my first babysitter ever, but I will say that, you know, I just ended up just pretending I knew what she was saying, shaking my head, and I went straight back upstairs. When I went back upstairs, I remember I ended up going straight to my Xbox and I started playing Xbox again. But 5 minutes later, she ended up coming up to my room, and out of nowhere, even on the stairwell, I ended up hearing like a little fart sound, and I was like, wait a second, what was that? And then I ended up seeing my babysitter walk into the room and say, "Oh, hey, Bubba. So I was just wondering, I'm a little hungry. Are you hungry?" "No, my mom gave me food before I left." "Oh, okay. Well, I'm hungry. So is there anything for me to eat in the kitchen?" I mean, you can just help yourself," is what I said. And I remember she went straight downstairs and basically started doing her own thing. To be honest, I don't know what she did because I was upstairs playing Xbox, but I remember 20 minutes went by and I ended up basically getting actually hungry. I don't know why in grade 5 I would eat a lot. To be honest, I was a bit overweight back when I was in grade 5. But anyways, afterwards, I ended up going downstairs, and when I started to head downstairs, I turned the corner and instantly I ended up seeing that this babysitter was leaning back on a chair in the dining room table with her feet kicked up onto the table with her toes out, and she was eating crackers and ketchup together. Now listen, crackers and cheese, that makes sense, you know, cheese and crackers, that's fine, but ketchup and crackers? Like, are you joking, bro? That's disgusting. I remember at that moment I looked at her and I basically looked at her really weird, and she looked at me saying, "Oh, you must be hungry. Here, do you want a cracker and ketchup?" I'm good, thanks," is what I told her. And I remember I basically ended up walking away and went to the living room to watch TV. I remember after a while, I actually started starving even more and more, to the point where I ended up basically texting my parents that I was starving and that this babysitter cannot cook for the life of her. My parents ended up texting me, "Oh, Bubba, well, we left some cash for you upstairs under daddy's pillow. Go upstairs and get some money." So I remember I ended up sprinting upstairs, went downstairs, and I remember I basically ended up walking up to my babysitter saying, "I was just wondering, is it cool if we order a pizza? I'm not paying for a pizza." "Oh, no, it's okay. My mom gave me money to pay for it. Is it cool if we ordered a pizza?" "Yeah, sure, just order it." I was hoping you would order it, if that's okay." The reason I said this was because I was really nervous back then. I was really scared to basically call literally anyone. Yes, I had a phone, but it was only to call my parents. And to be fair, those were the only 2 numbers that were ever saved on my phone until obviously middle school. That's when I started pulling girls. But, you know, I was just extremely nervous. I remember this girl ends up grabbing her phone and she ends up calling the pizza place, orders us a pizza. Except this pizza was the most disgusting pizza ever. She ended up getting sardines on the pizza and then pineapples. And on top of that, she ended up getting olives on top of it. At that moment, I slammed my head up against the wall and I just knew like I was not going to eat that night, and I was just really upset. So what I decided to do is basically go into my kitchen cabinet and I ended up grabbing a loaf of bread and I ate that for the rest of the night. I remember 40 minutes went by and I ended up hearing the doorbell ring, and obviously it was the pizza guy, and I knew it was because I could smell the pizza coming from my window. And this babysitter ends up grabbing the pizza from the front door and calling me downstairs to eat the pizza with her. Now me, obviously I wasn't hungry anymore since I ate a loaf of bread, so I ended up going downstairs and I just sat with her basically. And I remember when this babysitter ended up opening up the pizza box, I am not joking, she ended up basically scratching her peach and literally was picking her nose, and then she went for the pizza slice. Like, bro, I didn't want to be anywhere near that pizza after I witnessed that. I was so disgusted, and I looked at her saying, are you not gonna wash your hands? Baba, why would I wash my hands? I'm a girl. I'm just naturally clean. At that moment, I realized that this girl had no sense of hygiene or anything. And me, I was just so grossed out to the point where I just didn't want to be anywhere near her. But let's just say things went from gross to ultimately disgusting, because what happens next, I gotta say, really freaks me out. I remember it was super late at night and it was around 10:30 at night. Now, me, usually my bedtime was at 10 o'clock back when I was in grade 5. So I remember I went upstairs, I went to my room, and I basically started laying down, getting ready for sleeping. But as I was laying down, getting ready to sleep, I remember out of nowhere, my babysitter ends up walking into my room. She walks into my room and looks at me and says, oh, Baba, I was just wondering, do you want like some company? I remember I looked at her really confused and I said, no, why? Is everything okay? No, it's just, I can't really sleep by myself. At that moment, I was really confused because I'm like, wait, does this girl want to do the devil's tango with me? Like, what in the world's happening? And then one thing led to another. She ended up getting under my blanket with me and laying down beside me and passing out. At that moment, I was super annoyed because not only did this girl stink of anchovies, but she was just super disgusting. And I just couldn't sleep and I just felt like really weird. And also, what kind of babysitter does this? I remember after a while, like 20 minutes went by and me, I was still wide awake. She was passed out dead and I'm just laying there thinking this could not get any worse. But guess what? It ended up getting way worse because out of nowhere, I ended up looking to the side and I saw she ended up moving her like peach a little bit and she ended up releasing the loudest fart sound ever in my bed under the blanket. At that moment, I remember when she moved the blanket a bit around after that crazy fart, I ended up basically getting a whole whiff of what was coming out of under my blanket. And I'm not joking, my eyes started to water. I was so grossed out. And I remember I really just wanted to get out of there. So I ended up getting up and I actually ended up sleeping on my living room couch just because I could not breathe in my room anymore. I remember the next morning came by and I remember she ended up walking up to me on the couch and she asked me, Baba, why'd you pass out on the couch? Is everything okay? I looked at her and I just kind of rolled my eyes at her and I went upstairs to brush my teeth. But as for this babysitter, well, one thing I was right about, she did not brush her teeth. And I remember she ended up basically sitting on my couch and basically was ultimately disgusting. I will say though, when my parents finally got home, things were a lot better because obviously she ended up leaving. I told my parents, never ever get that disgusting babysitter again. They looked at me confused, but I knew what I was talking about. Honestly, if you guys don't want a babysitter like this and just fall for more embarrassing stories, peace out, guys.